What if our police forces, too many of them, are locked in this sort of downward spiral, this doom loop, where, as you say, when we had those austerity years 10 years ago, police numbers were dramatically cut back, and then Boris Johnson comes along and says we'll have 20,000 extra police officers, but actually what you've lost is that trickle down of expertise and experience that comes from those experienced officers. Is it possible that that's actually irrecoverable and we will not get a police service anything like as competent as it once was?
I think it's going to take at least 10 years to start to restore that. And the reason I'll use it is just on a basic police shift in a city. You had people on those shifts with maybe 18, 20 years experience. The average level of experience of the senior people on shifts now is 3 years. And from my knowledge of policing, I can tell you a 3-year-old, not 3-year-old's wrong, but the 3 years service police officer, relatively speaking, knows very little about the wider aspects of policing or indeed what they do. To me, the real problem with policing is the public know exactly what the police should do and what they want them to do, but it's just that the police chiefs and the politicians who give them all their silly targets don't know. They should ask the public. It's obvious. Turn up for people who've had their cars broken into, burglaries of their houses, sort the yobs out on the street, stop play acting on TikTok and virtue signalling with 101 different things, and also support the police. Understand, yes, we want proportionate use of force, but don't scare the cops literally to death in getting stuck in anymore because they think they're going to be investigated or suspended. Most people out there understand when you're arresting a violent person, quite often you actually have to punch them or kick them or smash them to the floor. That's what happens.
Yeah.
People have got to understand that and remind that instead of listening to all these bleeding heart people saying, oh, too much force, too much force. It's very difficult to control someone who doesn't want to be arrested.
Kevin, just on that point, and I know we don't want to get dragged, and you certainly don't want to be dragged into the specifics of a case that's broken in the last couple of hours, or details of which have just broken in the last couple of hours, concerning a 93-year-old man with dementia, one-legged, in a care home. He gets pepper sprayed, he gets tasered, he dies 3 weeks later. Subject of an ongoing inquiry. Let's park that. But just on the point you're saying there about the use of force by police officers, the proportionate use of force, we're very broadly, so give us some context on tasers. Are we using them too much, too little? Where do you stand?
They're not using them enough. And the reason I say that is, obviously the first thing you want to do is try and diffuse the confrontation by being sensible, emotionally intelligent, and trying to persuade, cajole in the appropriate circumstances. If you can't do that and you then have to go to what we might call a hands-on situation, the least injurious way of applying force to another person is to give them a low amperage electric shock with a taser, as opposed to what I've just described, punch them, kick them, force them to the floor, or hit them repeatedly with a metal button, or spray their face, eyes and nose with a very unpleasant irritant spray. People need to understand that a taser is not some kind of space-age weapon. It gives you a 5-second electric shock and it's all over. You stand up, you don't feel anything else, except by then they've got the handcuffs on. If you're trying to deal with someone who doesn't want to be arrested, even a woman, actually, with 2 or 3 or 4 men, it's a terrible scene. You're going to have to force her to the floor. Handcuffs go on. Well, you can all remember the image of the gingerhead self-promotionist who got herself arrested at the Sarah Everard vigil. You know, if she'd have been tasered, whoosh, tasered, handcuffs on, instead forced to the floor, handcuffs, and then handcuffs applied. The bottom line is, if I'm being arrested and a policeman and I'm going to fight a policeman, I would far prefer they taser me than hit me repeatedly with a metal button, knock me to the floor, squash me or whatever. People need to understand tasers are much safer than anything else police can do, apart from a negotiation, of course.